No.
Now, did you drop out of school to start busking?
Yeah, I was very lucky in that, I had very, very, very little interest in school at all. I mean, I was 14 and I was in the head class. I was in the good class of people who kind of had a bit of a brain. I grew up in I guess what you would call, I grew up in a place called Ballymun, which in Dublin is a bit like, we only ever had one project, which was basically tall tower blocks of flats. And that's where I grew up. And in a lot of ways, it was kind of like, there was like 45 people in each classroom. And the chances of you kind of getting out and getting a good education and going to college were zero.
Yeah.
It was all about basically passing your base exams and then getting a job in a garage or getting a job in a shopping centre. So it was very, like the expectations among the children of my area was very low. And so I was in this class. I'd just started secondary school. I had absolutely no interest in it. But my head teacher was a DJ. And every time I'd go down and hang out with him, he'd ask me about Leonard Cohen recordings, and I'd be able to tell him the musicians that played on certain records, or I'd be able to tell him what track, track 3 of the songs from a room, and I'd be able to talk to him in incredible depth about records. And he was like, "So you're a very bright lad, actually.
Right.
You know your stuff, but you only know what you care about. So here's my advice: leave school today."
Awesome.
Leave school, go home, get your guitar, do me a favour, go into town and start playing music now. Start on the bottom rung, go busking on the streets and work your way up through music. But do me a favour, don't go home and watch television for 2 years and then sort of drift into some other job. If you really love music as much as I know you do, because you talk about it, so you're so tuned into it, go and make it.
Have you ever thanked this person in a liner note ever?
Absolutely. I thank him all the time. Frankie Byrne was his name. An amazing man. And he completely woke me up to a whole new life, because I went over to the south side of the city, which I'd never been to before, which was more the middle class part of the city, and I started busking. And through busking, I met Leonard Cohen, I met Van Morrison, I met Dylan, I hung out with poets.
How'd you meet Dylan?
I met Dylan rehearsing with my band one night, and it was a very, very, very bizarre situation in that we were rehearsing in a room, and out of the blue, like in Ireland, in Dublin, Dylan was standing at the doorway of a rehearsal room having a cigarette. And I didn't know what to say. I was completely gobsmacked, because Dylan's my mother's hero, was my childhood hero. And I just said to him, I just said, Bob, and I went up and I said a lot, and I said, meeting you is a bit like what it must have been like when you met Woody. And I think I must have said the right thing, because he just started talking to me and talking about Woody, and I knew enough about Woody to keep a conversation with him. And the next day we came back. I mean, I was over the moon. I went home. I told my mother. She couldn't believe it. I shook Bob Dylan's hand. I actually had a copy of Tarantula in my pocket. He signed it. And I went home and I told my mother. I came back in the next day to rehearse with my band, over the moon. And we got a phone call at midday saying, is the guy from the Frames there? And I answered the phone, and it was Dylan's manager saying, do you want to come to London and open up for Dylan for the next 5 nights?
This is insane.
It was incredible.
Wow.
They said, if you can get a flight to London this afternoon, you can open for Dylan for the next 5 nights. He really liked you, and I don't know why.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Was your first acting job in The Commitments, was that your first and only?
Yeah, that was the only time I ever did it. And again, it was one of those situations where I was up all night with a friend of mine, and we were hanging out and just listening to records, and he had an audition. He was an actor, and I was a busker. And he went and he went for this audition for this film, The Commitments, and I went along with him because we were just hanging out.
Yeah.
And I've got red hair. I'm from the north side of the city. I play guitar, which is exactly fit the bill of the character they were looking for. And so they said to me, "Would you like to read a few lines?" I was like, "Dude, I'm just here with me mate. But come on in and read a few lines." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I did, and actually, but once I read the few lines, I realized how much I loved Roddy Doyle's writing, and I went off and I read the book, and then I got really excited about it. But I got the part. Yeah, it was very unusual.
That you seem like you're the guy who's in the right place at the right time.
Well, I hope so.